Thank you everyone that has joined. This is our first program of the semester, so we're really excited. And we have two phenomenal panelists with us today. Like Abby said, my name is AJ. I'm the Executive Director for Hilltoppers for Hilltoppers. We're a student philanthropy group on campus, and we're focusing on these two and our Spill the Tea session, just like giving about what it means to give back during your involvement in undergrad. So I'm just going to do a little introduction of Mariana and Ashley. So Mariana, she's currently working, she's the executive assistant to the chief advocacy officer at RACE. She also graduated from St. Ed's this past May with a degree in political science and a double minor with Spanish and journalism and digital media. And then we have Ashley. She is currently at the University of Mississippi studying accounting and data analytics. And she studied accounting and finance during her time at St. Edward's. And she also just graduated. So now I'm going to get into our questions. Okay. So I'll just ask the question, and then either Ashley or Mariana, y'all can just jump in or go after whoever wants to go first. So the first question is, tell us about yourself, including why you chose St. Edward's and what you were involved in as an undergrad.
Mariana, you can go first if you'd like.
Sure. So tell me about myself. My family's from Bogota, Colombia. I lived in El Paso, or live in El Paso partially, depending how, I guess I technically live in Austin now. When I was making the decision for university and like looking at colleges, I had this idea in my mind that I wasn't going to get in anywhere. And so I applied to many schools, but I was looking for a school that was in a big city, but not like in the center of it. I wanted a pretty campus. I wanted it to feel like the people there cared about you, and it wasn't like this mass transit kind of experience. And I visited St. Ed's with my mom in July, so it was really hot and I was in a really bad mood, but I absolutely fell in love with it. The minute that I landed on campus, it felt like home. It felt like I could see myself growing, and everyone just felt so kind and like genuine, and that's something that I really appreciate in people. So that's kind of why I ended up there. It was everything that I wanted. It was close to home, but not too close to home. And I ultimately wouldn't go back and change anything ever about my decision to go there. And I'm happy that I got to spend 4 years, well, 3 years and 3 months. Shout out to COVID.
Yeah. So I'm from Houston, Texas, more specifically Katy, Texas, if you're familiar. I mean, I played softball growing up my whole life, so I was looking for primarily a good high academic school, but also somewhere where I could play softball. And so just through the recruiting process, I came across St. Ed's. I saw how great academics it is, and it still was Division II. I'd be able to play. And so when I came on campus, it was beautiful. It like felt like home, and it was an instant match. And I mean, I slowly like became to see it as a second home, like build community with all the people here. And so it's just everything about it. So it made me like love it even more. And I think you mentioned like kind of what I was involved with as well. I think you're asking, AJ.
Yeah, that's great.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, obviously I was on the softball team at St. Ed's, but I was also involved in the accounting club, like FCA, especially SAC, which is the Student Athlete Advisory Committee at St. Ed's. And we kind of led service projects and like different ways to build engagement with athletes and students, as well as just community service overall. So those are some of the things that were close to my heart while I was at St. Ed's.
Awesome. And like, did you have any internships while you were at St. Ed's?
Yeah. So my first internship was after my sophomore year. I interned at WP Engine, which is a tech company, in Austin, and which is one of the awesome parts about St. Ed's being in Austin, because there's so many tech startups. I connected with one of the business students that was already working there, and so that kind of jump started my career in terms of analytics. And then I landed in audit internship with KPMG, which is who's sponsoring my MATA program at Ole Miss. And so that what kind of segued into me being able to start full time next fall with them. So, yeah.
So, well, thank you. And Mariana, I'll go back to you and like what you were involved in, and also like internship experiences. Because I knew you and Ashley both in undergrad, and y'all were heavily involved around campus.
Yeah, so sorry I missed that part of the question. I think my involvement experience, I decided to jump in head first when I was a freshman. There was something at the time called the Residential Event Planning Board. So that's kind of how I started, and kind of just, yeah, I really dove in head first. I was like, I was dedicated to being everything I wasn't in high school. So after that, I got involved with an organization that was out of student activities called the Campus Involvement Ambassadors. So our job was to help other students find involvement opportunities. And so through that, I was able to get to know a lot of the other organizations on campus, whether they were university sponsored or student led, which I really enjoyed. And I was involved with them for about 2 years. The first year, just as an ambassador, and the second year I was the executive director. I also was involved with orientation. So I was a herd leader when I was a sophomore, and then as a junior, I was an orientation coordinator, which I absolutely loved. I was able to, along with an incredible team, put on the orientations for incoming freshmen throughout the summer. So that was really fun. And then I was also involved in student government. So I was on the big event committee. Originally, I started off on the operations subcommittee. And so if you all don't know what the big event is, it's like the university's biggest day of service. And so we have a couple different sites. We had, and now y'all have a couple sites throughout the city. And as the operations committee, we were in charge of coordinating with other sites in Austin. And then, so after serving on the committee, I was I think the title is like executive head of operations. So that's kind of, I also gave tours, which was one of my absolute favorite parts about being involved on campus. It was super great to get to know people, and like, I always said, like, convert them to like our St. Ed's ways. And so that's kind of a little bit about my experience on campus. As far as off-campus internships, I was definitely heavily involved in that as well. I had my first internship as a freshman at the governor's office in the criminal justice division. I had a couple internships in politics with the Democratic Party as well. Then I transitioned to now where I work in my career as in a nonprofit sector. So I worked first at Make-A-Wish, which was an incredible experience, super rewarding and incredible place to be. And then I was an intern at Raíces, which is the Refugee and Immigrant Center for Education and Legal Services, which is actually now where I work. So that's a huge, super quick rundown of who I was and what I did.
Awesome, thank you. I guess moving on to the next question, what inspired y'all to give back during your time at St. Ed's?
I guess first it was like I had wanted to get involved, like know more about the community and such. And then once I like experienced that culture of like people older than me, people my same age, like like committing their time to service, I was like, well, I want to do that too. And also another piece of it is that like I realized like we're here for something bigger than ourselves, and so we're kind of called to serve others and kind of provide those opportunities for others that we were provided. And so like I led a service project with my softball team my sophomore year, and I just felt like I was called to be like, hey, we could do this. And it like felt like I was called to do SBE, to like kind of immerse in another culture, just to like I guess the phrase like do justice, like live spiritually, like those are like big parts of why I feel like I should give back to the university, especially because it gave me so much during my time.
Yeah, I will totally echo what Ashley said. I think, like I mentioned this earlier, but the people at St. Ed's are so genuine and kind, and like everyone that's involved in these service projects and these organizations, I mean, I feel like for the most part, you meet people that are doing it because they want to, you know. It's kind of like the resume part is just a secondary benefit. And so that's kind of what inspired me to give back. I was surrounded by people that I saw were like being just good people and like giving back to the community. And I was definitely raised with the values that we are meant to be on this earth and leave it a little bit better than we found it. And so that looks different for everybody, right? Like, no, there's not one way of doing that. And I definitely found a lot of similarities in the way that I grew up and the way that I saw the world and the Holy Cross mission, which I know sounds like super cheesy, like I'm a St. Ed's robot, but it's so true. I feel like, you know, we are so privileged and we are so lucky to have the things that we have. And if we have the opportunities to give back to those who wouldn't do anything for even like an eighth of the opportunities that we have, that we have a, you know, a duty to do so. And it's so easy to do it at St. Ed's too. Like there's so many great ways to get involved, and it almost felt silly to not do it. It was like, how could I not get involved? And I mean, from anything from SBE to the big event, or just like the Serve One Day project, or even just like organizations on campus, are so valuable and do such good work.
Thank you. And I know for Hilltoppers, we talked a lot about giving back, like service and monetary. Were y'all ever drawn to like giving for a certain cause, or like what made you want to give in that way?
Yeah, I guess for instance, I think during the pandemic, the women's soccer team was doing a run-a-thon for a local charity in Austin, and so I just felt like a tug at my heart, like like I was given all these opportunities, so I felt like I needed to give a little. I mean, I'm still a college student, so I don't have much, but I was like, this is kind of symbolic, like that matters to me, so I'm going to give a little. I guess also like for like softball in the business school, I mean, just symbolic, just a little bit to show like that matters to me as something I did as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think that there is so many forms of giving, and especially now, like I've learned through my career that it's really good when people are able to identify, like if you give, you know, $15, this means like, for example, in my line of work, it means like a meal for a family in detention or something like that. And so when you start seeing it like that, like $15 for me means like what? Like I don't get to buy a shirt at Target, like a shirt that I probably don't need. I think it's kind of when you have those realizations that we live, so much of the things that we have and the things that we do are not needed to live, and that there are people that don't even have those basic things. It's something when that clicks in your mind, that you're like, okay, like I think I can live without a latte for 2 days or whatever. And so I think that's what needed to click for me to kind of have that moment. And I mean, when you can, you should. That's kind of how I see it.
Thank you. So kind of into our next segment, I guess kind of going with the theme of like spooky October, when Gabby and I were like brainstorming, we were thinking about like quarantine and like y'all's experience going from like having classes and then graduating virtually. So my question is like, what did y'all do y'all's first couple of months of quarantining?
Yeah, I would say given that softball was over, that was like hit me hard. And so I just kept trying to do the things that I could do, like do my classes, meet over Zoom. I was interning with the IEP office on campus, which is the Institutional Effectiveness and Planning. So I just kept on meeting with them, doing some work with that. But then like once virtual graduation happened, I decided to study for one of my CPA exams. And so it was a weird transition from me, like before quarantine, being an athlete to just being a normal student. And so trying to find, also like putting in time to like, what does, I don't know, fitness mean to me? So that's something I kind of did, or had to figure out during quarantine those first few months.
Yeah, I think quarantine in the beginning was such an interesting time. It was, like you said, finishing school and kind of, I tried to stick to as much of a routine because I'm really big on routines and like kind of having my day planned. And so I tried to, to the best of my ability to kind of stick to that. As I'm sure all of you know, like quarantine does not really allow for so much of that because it's so easy to stray away from a routine. But I kept going to class. A lot of my free time was spent looking for jobs. So I started looking for a full-time position probably like at the same time as the pandemic. So right around like that second or third week of March. And I tried to stay active. So in the beginning, I was like super good about working out, and I have a pool back home and I spend time with my dog. And in a weird way, it was this kind of silver lining because had it not been for COVID, my plan was to go to Colombia for the summer and spend some time with my family over there. And I probably wasn't going to be going back home like with my family in El Paso for a long time, or at least not for a good amount of time. So in a way, it was kind of the silver lining where I kind of got to go back to that. My family, my like sister and my mom and my dad, and I got to be all in the house again, which wasn't going to happen since my sister started college this year. So it was a weird dynamic for sure, getting used to like being an independent college student and like living my own life or whatever, and going back to being, like in your parents' house and living with your sister and your dog, which is the best part for sure. But it was a lot of self-reflection and kind of FaceTiming my friends 24/7.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can relate to like just FaceTiming your friends because we went from like being on campus with all our friends senior year to like boom, and then we're like, oh, how are we gonna go about this? Oh, I guess we can FaceTime. The new age of technology. So I can relate to that, and I kind of tried to stay connected a little bit with my student organizations I was a part of. We had like Zoom meetings for like the SAC officers as well. And so, so service, it was hard to do service, but I was like, oh, I'm not an athlete anymore. I can give blood now. So that's one thing that I did. It actually didn't work out well because I passed out. Or no, I didn't pass out. I almost passed out. Yeah, but it was an interesting time.
Yeah. Okay, well, I think that's a really good transition to our next question. So how did you navigate life after graduation and landing your first job, and then also, I guess, transitioning into your master's program?
This one, I was actually just having a conversation with someone about this because I won't lie, I won't sugarcoat it for the sake of this, but I had a hard time dealing with what we'd lost and kind of the gravity of those moments. When you're a college senior, you go into it expecting like, okay, and for me, like I had planned a lot of these events. Like I had spoken at Latinx grad previously. I had like planned legacy walk. I had, like seen commencement happen. And like I'd been looking forward to these moments. And so it was kind of like my transition from graduation to getting a first job was kind of like, there was none. It was just like, it was a Tuesday and a Wednesday. Like I was still in my house. I was still, in my same like childhood bedroom. I was still eating breakfast with my family, So that was a little difficult. And it's hard to come to terms with like, this is life now. But in a lot of ways, I was very lucky because I started working at an organization where I had just been interning. So my timeline was it was a super quick turnaround. Graduation was May 9th and I started my position on June 25th. So I didn't have much time of just like doing nothing. I'm also not very good at doing nothing. So my friends and family can attest that those like 5 weeks, I was just like sitting around like, all right, what do I do? But I mean, I think there's a lot that you find within yourself, like as a college student, that you can apply to yourself as a career, in your career, like sticking to your routines and being on like dumb little things like being on time, always being known for making jokes in meetings and stuff like that. A lot of that you hold on to, and you can like use that as like your compass for navigating life, especially when there's not a clear transition from like, okay, I went from a campus to like, you know, work, like an office building. So I think you just have to find other little similarities that you can use to kind of hold it all together. I don't know if that made any sense.
Yep, I mean, I agree with kind of that idea, and actually it gives me some insight as I go forward. Like specifically for me, it was kind of the thing where because I was continuing to study over the summer, I guess the biggest thing was like, kind of like you said, being home in your childhood bedroom while making this transition. It was kind of surreal. It's like, wow, like I got the same purple walls. I mean, I'm at college now, so there's no purple walls, but kind of that sort of thing. And I mean, more substance, like there was graduation that weekend, and then, well, actually, no, I guess I did take a couple weeks off now that I think about it. I was supposed to start studying for the CPA exam that next Monday, but it ended up being like the first weekend in June. So it was like, so like obviously you have like weaknesses when like you're going through sport, like there's so much failure in softball. So I like realized like, wow, like some of these same weaknesses I was dealing with now then I still have now. So I was like, okay, so I need to improve on these things. And so kind of that approach, how can I continuously improve? Kind of a unique situation for me is that with the program that I committed to, I have like that first job waiting for me. And so like there wasn't that piece in job searching that I had to do, but just a focus on continuous development professionally and kind of personally as well.
Yeah, I like what y'all said. I feel like it's kind of so real, and I guess it could be inspirational in a way, just like having started college and then going back to your childhood, your hometown, or like living with your parents for a little bit, and just like you're transitioning into this new chapter, but kind of taking like 2 chapters back, which I thought was really good insight. So thank y'all for that. And actually, I was going to ask, did you plan on doing your master's like before the pandemic, or like when did you decide you wanted to get your master's?
Sure. So I guess it was spring of my junior year that I applied for the program that I'm doing. With it being through like KPMG, they had a process where they do a lot of interviews, a lot of vetting rounds, and then we got the notice whether we accepted or not, I guess August before my senior year. And so, so August before my senior year, I knew I was going to Ole Miss, and that it was through KPMG. And so, I mean, it definitely was like, I was expecting like, okay, like there's going to be the football games and there's going to be the tailgating beforehand. And like those things didn't happen, but I still am on campus, or not on campus, but in the city of Oxford. So that kind of stayed the same. Obviously, it's different with a lot of Zoom classes, a few in person. So it definitely changed things, but I'm still at the place where I like knew I was going to be, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's really good. Well, thank you. I'll let y'all like take a sip of water if y'all want, and just thank everyone that's on right now, just that we can get like a little breather. I think so far everything's going really well. Y'all's insights and what you'll have to say, and I know I'm a senior, and there's also some seniors on the call right now, and even underclassmen, and what y'all are saying is definitely going to be helpful to look back on as we transition into our next chapter. Okay, so for our next question, where do you see yourselves in the next 5 years?
Well, before I answer this, I think if I were to give a piece of advice, is find a program in a position like Ashley that tells you where you're going to be a whole year before you're going to be there. Because if I could tell you like the amount of times we get that question, right? And I'm sure AJ and the other seniors on the call can relate when they're like, oh, so what are you doing post-graduation? And you're sitting there with like that huge question mark and you're like, oh, yeah. Uh-huh. So definitely find a program like that if you can. And that's obviously mostly a joke, but also works. If it happens, then you should do it. But to answer your question, AJ, I think in 5 years, so I was doing the math when I was looking at this question. So in 5 years, I will be 27. It's bizarre to think about. I think I hope to be either have finished up grad school. So my current plan is to work, and COVID did push this back a little bit, the timeline in my head. So I'll be working and hopefully either doing like grad school at the same time, and I hope to continue working at Raíces. I'm very fortunate that my organization does allow that, and they encourage that kind of development with our staff. And so I'll probably start looking for programs in about a year, or start like finishing or looking at applications so that I can start within 2 years. So in 5 years, I should have finished up a program. Whether that's law school or grad school is to be determined. But regardless, I see myself, and this is again cheesy, but I love what I do. I love serving, especially vulnerable communities like with the immigrant and refugee community. I see myself continuing to work in the nonprofit sector, and kind of still doing what I've been doing since I got to St. Ed's 4 years ago, or 4.5 years ago, however much time has passed. It sounds really dumb, I swear, but I like just want to keep helping people. I want to keep just kind of developing as a professional. I think ideally I would like to be helping people at a new level. So I love my position now, but I mean, like all careers, I would like to grow. And so maybe working in organizing or working in communications. I'm really interested in kind of, ideally, actually, in 5 years, what I do now won't be needed because family detention and the way that we treat immigrants won't be what it is now. But there's always so much to do and so many ways to help. So I'm really interested to see kind of how that develops and where I can plug my passions and my like little skills to help the movement. So.
That's awesome. Yeah, I like what you said. I feel like some jobs that people have, they're like working towards where they don't want that job for anyone or themselves in the future. And until I started this role, actually, I didn't realize that. And I was like, that makes so much sense. Like that's a reason why people are in certain positions, is that they're working so hard that way, like whatever role they're in or what they're fighting for, advocating for, it doesn't exist in the future.
Yeah, it's super bizarre. I mean, you don't go into a job thinking like, I want to not have this job eventually, because, you know, society has conditioned us to believe we need a job and we need that to like be valid in society or whatever. But I mean, it's just so important. And like, it looks that way in a lot of different ways. Like ideally we would like to be like self-sufficient human beings, right? Where like, there is no like ugliness and there's no poverty and there's no racism and there's no, you know, enter like societal issue here, but there's always going to be organizations that are fighting towards a better tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
It's really well put.
Yeah, I agree. There's always more work to do. You work towards one thing and then you gotta solve another problem to help others and such. But I need states that I'll be with KPMG for 3 years, so that's like 4 years from now. But I'd say 5 years from now, I would hope to, potentially be with KPMG is in their audit practice. Definitely one of my personal goals, definitely in terms of like giving back, is to have either some sort of program or such to kind of work with nonprofits in the Houston area once I get in there, and kind of either do like giving back softball camps or like after school, like tutoring, especially because like we'll be like audit people. So I guess everyone knows us as numbers people. So kind of just enriching the like say people that don't maybe have the opportunities I do, like to give them those opportunities. I mean, not many people know, but I actually originally grew up in like the A-Leaf area in Houston. It's not a great part of Houston, and so kind of giving back to that community potentially through like either softball and like school kind of enrichment, stuff like that, and either moving up in KPMG or maybe going a more like data rich route, because that is kind of a passion I have. But yeah, that's where I'd say I see myself.
And that audit company, is it stationed in Houston?
So it's one of they call it Big Four public accounting firms. So it's international, but I would be at the Houston office. Yeah.
I definitely think that there's opportunities like at Raíces. So we always have like our local organizers are looking for organizations, like a lot of undocumented folks and a lot of the community that we serve, like they don't know / are afraid to do basic things like file their taxes or like they don't know how to open a bank account, you know, basic things that you and I take for granted. So I definitely think that there's a lot of ways that even, I mean, now or anything, you could pitch it to your company of like working with organizations that do serve these like vulnerable communities. And I know when I was an intern, we did a lot of work with Foundation Communities here in Austin, who helped us kind of offer those services at a free or a very low rate to for community members. So lots of stuff you can do for sure.
Yeah, for sure. I know with Foundation Communities, with our accounting program at St. Ed's, they actually like told us about it. And so this past spring, like before the pandemic happened, I'd helped with taxes a little bit there. Yeah, potentially working with folks in Houston to kind of partner with communities with that.
Yeah, hit me up in 5 years.
All right. Well, I mean, it could be in the next couple even.
Yeah, we do have a Houston office, so.
Oh, okay. Very cool. Yeah, I'll hit you up.
That's awesome, and also super important. Okay, so we have our last question that we're coming up on, and that is for our last question of the evening. Do you have any advice for current students?
Let's see. I think current students in current pandemic-ridden world.
Yes.
And this is, I think, advice that I'm giving to y'all and I'm taking myself. You know, be patient with yourself. Be patient with the world. Be kind to yourself and be kind to others. I think one of the things that if I could go back to tell my freshman self was like, which again, I think I would also slap myself, but trust the process, you know? There's a reason that you're going through the things that you're going through, and the steps that you take to get to where you end up, as unfortunate and crappy as they may feel in the moment, all serve a purpose. And so like, I mean, thinking back to my 4 years, I definitely went through times where I was like, this is like, you know, a hard class, or when you're really struggling on like studying for a test, or you had maybe like a bad meeting for an organization, or you're frustrated with the system, or you're frustrated with the administration at St. Ed's, or whatever it may be. It's just kind of know that like you are there for a reason, you're there to help. Take advantage of every opportunity that you have. I know like at St. Ed's, they're killing themselves over there trying to find and create as many opportunities for the students on campus as they can while still being safe. So take advantage of them, you know, like I remember in general, you know, we had a lot of trouble with student engagement when I was a student, and it's hard to get people to turn out for events, even when there wasn't a pandemic. So I can't imagine what it must be to be a student leader now, but you know, like all these people, they're putting these things together and they're offering these programs for you, and they're free in a lot of ways, you know, like take advantage of them. Yes, I know Zoom sucks. I sit on a computer in front of it all day long too, from 8:30 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. But, just kind of swallow it and be prepared. And, I still follow the accounts, like UPB's putting on like a mystery dinner. That looks super cool. Like, go to it. Like, take advantage of the little things that you can still do. Even if you're a senior and you think you're too cool for school and like, why do I need to do that? People are working really hard to keep you safe and to like give you these opportunities, as silly and stupid as they may feel to you. But it's through silly opportunities that you get to find who you are and like who you want to be as a leader and as a person. You get to make incredible friends. Like, if I were to like, doesn't it sound kind of silly to put on events for like a bunch of residents? Like, that's what I did as a freshman, and that's how I found a bunch of friends that I have now. Or, it sound silly to send like a bunch of emails? I don't know. I feel like if you look at anything through a negative lens, you can convince yourself to not do anything. And I think it's really easy to let ourselves fall into that now. So I feel like I just preached at y'all, but you should just take advantage and be safe, for the love of God. Wear a mask. That's my advice to y'all.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would say take a chance. Say like, I know a lot of times in undergrad, there'll be like at a random event I'll see posted. I was like, that might seem cool. I don't know. And then I went, and so I met some folks there, and maybe I saw them before, but I got to know them really well there. And so it's like, I know I saw like campus ministry was having like a fellowship type thing outside the grotto. I was like, I saw that and I was like, man, I wish I was at St. Ed's campus. I could go to that. And I was like, well, I'm in a new place now. And so just like those random things, jump on them. Even like a Zoom call for organization, it's going to be super casual. Say like, I don't know if, what's an example? I don't know, Campus Ministries Bible Study. I think they do Zoom Bible studies. I was like, jump on that and just anything you can see, because you'd be impressed by like how much community you can still build with Zoom, and just keep on continuing that. Inviting your friends when the sports teams start competing again, like just find any opportunity and take advantage of it, I'd say.
Those are both really good insights, so thank you all so much. Do you have anything else to say before we get into our next segment?
I don't think so.
I think we got it. I'm ready. We're ready.
Perfect. Thanks again for being here. I know we've been asking you a lot of questions, and we appreciate all the thoughtful and detailed answers that you've provided, and hopefully they'll be helpful to not just the students that are here in attendance today, but also to the students who will be watching the broadcast later. Your advice will live on, not just beyond this evening, but throughout time. We did want to provide the opportunity for students that were in attendance. If any of you have any questions for Mariana and Ashley, you can either unmute yourself or put them in the chat. No pressure, but we just wanted to provide the space. If there was anything specific you wanted to know, even like more detail about, like the grad school journey, or more detail about, I was going to say adulting, becoming an adult in the process and landing your first job, or your first internship, they are here to serve as your resources for that. So while they, everyone catches their breath, gets some water, feel free to pop those questions in.
In the meantime, I will shamelessly plug the Raíces Internship Program. We're currently looking for interns for the spring. If I can send the link, I can find it and send it. But we have, obviously it's remote, so you can technically be anywhere, but we have internships in San Antonio, Dallas, Fort Worth, Austin, and I think those are all of our advocacy internships. We do have internships in other departments, so like with our development team as well, if that's something that you're interested in. But shameless plug, it works really well. They are unpaid, but I got a job out of mind. So it's an incredible organization, and you get to do a lot of really good work with good people. So to all you listening, if you want to join, let me know.
Thank you. I feel like during our conversation, like we're so diverse, or I guess y'all are both like diverse as far as like internship and experiences and on-campus involvements and like your majors and minors. Like I feel like there's so many themes and like ways that we could have gone tonight. So I do appreciate all y'all's insights and everything that y'all have said. Even just like being the host or of the panelists, like I feel like I learned a lot. And can use some of what y'all said like in the future, or even just like finding a job soon.
Here to help. Use LinkedIn. I was
Yes.
super against LinkedIn in the beginning. I was like, I don't need that. I don't know. I felt like a grandmother. I was like, no. And then I joined, and it's like, that's where I looked for a lot of my jobs. A lot of the jobs that I applied for. That's where I now connect with people. And I've actually just recently, one of my friends from St. Ed reached out to me about a position that we were hiring for, and I was able to connect her and like put in a good word for her and stuff. So use your connections. That's what we're there for.
Yep, you're more than welcome to add me on LinkedIn. I'm sure Mariana too. I mean, like even when you start getting a job, you still keep up on it to kind of get to know more people, connect with, say like you have an interest that maybe not exactly what you're working on. You're gonna talk to folks about it and stuff like that. Yep.
Yeah. Connecting with other people within your industry and field. Really important. Like every time you have a meeting with someone from an outside organization, kind of making that connection, because eventually if you are looking for a job, want to hop on there.
Exactly. Okay, well thank y'all. I'm gonna go ahead and move on real quick before I give my closing remarks. But in case you missed it, some other plugins. So we had created a 73 questions with Brother Larry Atkinson, sorry. And it's on our Instagram, and we have it linked on our link tree and also on our Twitter. Me and Gabby worked really hard, and we were really excited about it. So definitely give it a watch. It's kind of inspired by the Vogue 73 questions. So it's really entertaining, and I think everyone on campus knows Brother Larry, so it's a really good video to watch. And then also add us on social media on Instagram and Twitter at SUH4H. And we also have a collegiate link where we just post like events and kind of just keep up with the student involvement world. And then lastly, I have here, if you'd like to make an intimate impact on the Hilltop, visit this bit.ly/H4H gives. We're going to be launching soon. Part of what we do is educate on student philanthropy and giving back through service and also through monetary. So if you're able, and if you love certain organizations, and there's like a lot to give to SBE, student activities, RecWell, there's so much that you can give to. So if anything's made an impact on you, you can just give there. So there's an opportunity for you to give as well. And then November 10th, we have another Spill the Tea session. So I guess be on the lookout for who we're going to have then. And I just want to say again, thank you to our panelists. Oh gosh, I turned really blue. Sorry. I look like a Smurf now. So thank you again to our panelists. Y'all were amazing. I really enjoyed having a conversation with y'all. And thank you for everyone that had attended. I hope y'all learned as much as I did, and y'all continue to stay engaged with us either through coming to events or just like adding us on social media.